Orhun strikes a horned rabbit mid-air with his sword, splitting it in two and watching it dissolve into purple smoke. He immediately moves down the dark stone corridor, testing his rusty physical skills against the dungeon's monsters. He realizes he still has what it takes to be a frontline swordsman. He spots a group of green goblins ahead and decides it is the perfect time to test his support magic. He casts strength up on himself, enveloping his body in a glowing green aura. Support magic is usually cast by backline enchanters to buff their party members' physical abilities or strengthen their equipment, but Orhun applies it directly to himself. He charges at the goblins, firing a blue magic beam from his finger that obliterates the lead monster. He then uses his sword, striking the remaining creatures with wide arcs of blue magic until they all turn into purple smoke. Orhun checks his timer and notes that exactly 3 minutes have passed. He knows support magic does not last forever, and its duration depends on the user's magic resistance. For him, the buffs last exactly 180 seconds. He spots another group of goblins and casts strength up again just before engaging them. He slices through the monsters effortlessly, noting that enchanters are constantly in a race against time to recast buffs at the perfect moment. Normally, an adventurer cannot focus on casting complex support spells while swinging a sword in the middle of a chaotic melee. But Orhun is different. He flawlessly weaves his magic and swordplay together, easily clearing the corridor. He lowers his weapon, reflecting on the painful memory of why he is fighting alone today. Just a day earlier, Orhun stood in a study with his childhood friends and party members, Oliver, Anneli, and Derek. They were the famous Heroes Party, the first group to ever reach the 94th floor of the Southern Grade Dungeon. But their unprecedented success came to a screeching halt when Oliver bluntly told Orhun he was being kicked out of the group. Orhun was completely blindsided and asked why his oldest friends were abandoning him. Oliver coldly explained that they had given him plenty of chances simply because they were from the same village, but Orhun was just too weak to keep up with them anymore. Anneli chimed in, telling Orhun he was nothing but dead weight slowing them down. Derek added that during a recent joint raid with another top-tier party, they saw firsthand how incredible a true S-rank enchanter could be. Compared to those specialists, Orhun's support magic was severely lacking. Orhun tried to defend himself, reminding them that he was originally a swordsman who willingly converted to an enchanter because the party desperately needed one and he had the highest aptitude for it. He even invented his own unique magic style to compensate for his flaws, kept them alive on the deepest floors. But Oliver shut him down, yelling that Orhun only switched roles because Oliver was the superior swordsman. They revealed they had already found a replacement enchanter and had no place for him anymore. Anneli mocked his versatile skill set, claiming his abilities were only A-rank level across the board, making him a useless jack-of-all-trades. Hurt and betrayed by the people he trusted most, Orhun accepted his exile and walked away. Back in the present, Orhun vows to turn their insult into his greatest strength. He embraces his new hybrid fighting style, determined to become an adventurer who can truly do everything flawlessly. He finishes his solo hunt and registers his progress at a glowing blue teleportation crystal on the 7th floor, planning to resume his journey from there next time. As he prepares to leave, a panicked group of 4 adventurers sprints past him, fleeing for their lives. Orhun overhears them arguing about leaving a new girl behind to die against a massive horde of monsters. The leader of the fleeing group, a woman in a brown cloak, defensively claims she made the right call to save her veteran friends over a rookie who just joined them that day. Orhun initially tries to mind his own business, knowing the girl just had terrible luck joining a cowardly party. However, the memory of his own party discarding him fuels his anger. He refuses to let these cowards make pathetic excuses for abandoning a comrade. Orhun steps in front of the group, grabs one of the men by the arm, and slams him to the floor. He glares at the terrified leader and demands to know exactly where they left the girl to die. Meanwhile, deep in a dark tunnel, the abandoned girl, Sophia Claudel, is backed against the stone wall by a horde of muscular gray-skinned demons. Terrified and crying, the young girl casts a defensive green magic circle, blasting the closest monsters with wind magic. She desperately calls out for her older sister to save her as she unleashes an arrow shock spell, but the sheer number of demons is too much for her to handle. The monsters close in, raising their crude wooden clubs to crush her. Suddenly, a flurry of rapid white energy slashes erupts through the dark corridor, tearing the demons to pieces. Orhun lands protectively in front of Sophia, his sword drawn and ready. Without missing a beat, he charges into the remaining horde. He spins and slashes with blinding speed, cutting down dark-furred werewolves and gray-skinned ogres alike. Surrounded by enemies, Orhun summons a green magic circle and casts strength up, unleashing a devastating magical slash that wipes out the closest beast. A massive werewolf towers over him and swings a jagged stone club, but Orhun easily blocks the heavy strike. He pushes the beast back and immediately casts technical up and sharpness up, imbuing his silver blade with a vibrant green light. He charges the remaining ogres, cleanly slicing through their weapons and bodies until every last monster dissolves into purple dust and glowing red crystals. Sophia watches in absolute awe, having never seen anyone fight with such a flawless blend of swordsmanship and enchanting. Orhun sheathes his sword and turns to the stunned girl, casually asking if she is alright. Sophia collapses in relief, sobbing tears of joy that she survived. Once they safely exit the dungeon and stand on a dirt path under a vibrant orange sunset, Orhun tells her he is leaving. Sophia frantically stops him, bowing deeply and introducing herself. Orhun notices the golden crest on her uniform, depicting a rabbit on a crescent moon, and realizes she belongs to the Night Sky Silver Rabbits, one of the most powerful and popular clans in the kingdom. Sophia nervously clasps her hands together and begs Orhun to let her treat him to dinner, as a thank you for saving her life. Orhun gets flustered and tries to decline, insisting he did not save her for a reward, but Sophia pleads so earnestly that he finally agrees. Sophia excitedly leads him through the town at night to a lively tavern run by her clan. The place is packed with adventurers eating and drinking. Sophia runs up to a long wooden table to greet a red-haired woman sitting there. Orhun recognizes the woman immediately. It is Selma Claudel, Sophia's older sister, the leader of the Silver Rabbits' top S-rank party, and the most famous enchanter on the continent. Selma is a legend who revolutionized dungeon exploration by creating the modern party structure, dividing members into distinct attacker, defender, and supporter roles. Her success was the very reason Orhun's old party forced him to become an enchanter in the first place, leading to his eventual banishment. Selma turns around and assumes Orhun is a creepy older guy trying to date her 14-year-old sister. She furiously accuses him of preying on Sophia and threatens to destroy him, causing magical lightning to crackle around her. Sophia frantically waves her hands and stops her sister, explaining that Orhun actually saved her life in the dungeon. Selma calms down but immediately pieces together that Sophia went exploring completely alone, directly disobeying orders to stay safe before their upcoming major expedition. Selma severely scolds her younger sister, forcing Sophia to apologize and promise never to wander off alone again. With the misunderstanding cleared up, Selma formally thanks Orhun for protecting Sophia and apologizes for her rude outburst. The three of them sit down for a meal together. Selma remarks that it has been a while since she and Orhun last spoke, revealing to a shocked Sophia that they already know each other. Selma explains they met during the massive joint raid last month, where they were stationed together as enchanters. Selma praises Orhun's skills, stating he was a massive help and performed exactly as she expected from a member of the legendary heroes party. Sophia is completely blown away to learn her savior is a famous top-tier adventurer. Orhun quickly corrects them, stating he is no longer a hero and was kicked out of his party just yesterday. Selma is visibly surprised that anyone would let a talent like Orhun go, but she quickly sees an opportunity. She notes that since he is currently a free agent, she has the perfect job for him. Selma wants Orhun to join the Silver Rabbits on a special teaching expedition starting the very next morning. The goal is to take a group of brand new recruits down to the 50th floor of the Southern Great Dungeon in just 3 days. Orhun is stunned by the proposal, pointing out that even the most talented rookies would need at least 6 months of training to survive that deep. Taking them down in 3 days is practically a suicide mission. Selma admits it is a crazy schedule, but they plan to take the shortest route possible to minimize danger. Orhun quickly deduces the real reason behind the rush. He realizes the clan's wealthy sponsors are forcing this dangerous expedition to quickly boost the guild's prestige. Since floor bosses appear every 10 floors and act as massive roadblocks that usually slaughter inexperienced fighters, the clan needs a veteran adventurer to effortlessly kill the bosses. Once the boss is dead, the rookies can simply register at the teleportation crystal and skip the danger entirely, artificially inflating their ranks and strengthening the clan's reputation. Selma is thoroughly impressed by Orhun's sharp intellect, noting he figured out the entire political scheme from just a few vague sentences. Selma sincerely tells Orhun she respects his abilities as an enchanter and desperately needs his help to keep the rookies alive. Orhun is touched by her words, especially after his old party discarded him for being a weak support mage. However, he is still hesitant to join another group so soon after his painful betrayal. Seeing his reluctance, Sophia grabs his hands across the table and desperately begs him to come along, her face flushed red with hope. Unable to say no to the girl he just saved, Orhun agrees to take the job, but he sets one firm condition. He explicitly tells Selma that he has converted back to his original class and will only participate in the expedition as a frontline swordsman, not a backline enchanter. Sophia is shocked by this sudden career change, but Selma calmly accepts his terms without argument. Deep down, Selma secretly assumes that if things go wrong in the dungeon, Orhun's heroic nature will force him to fall back on his elite enchanting skills anyway. After dinner, Orhun leaves the tavern and walks through the quiet nighttime streets, eventually stopping at a small cluttered potion shop he frequents. The shop is filled with colorful flasks and old weapons, run by an elderly man with a long white beard. The old man warmly welcomes Orhun and serves him a cup of coffee. He thanks Orhun for constantly advertising his little shop over the years, noting that business has been booming ever since Orhun became a famous S-rank adventurer. Orhun smiles sadly and breaks the news that he was kicked out of the hero's party. He apologizes to the old man, explaining that without his prestigious title, nobody will listen to his recommendations anymore, so he can no longer help the shop. The old man simply smiles and waves off the apology. He tells Orhun that he will always be grateful for the help, and that Orhun's worth is not tied to a fancy title. The old man praises Orhun's relentless hard work and strong character, assuring him that from now on, he will only hear more people thanking him because there are countless people out there who genuinely need his help. He urges Orhun to treasure those moments of gratitude and to start living for himself while continuing to help others. Touched by the old man's unwavering support, Orhun thanks his longtime friend and leaves the shop with a renewed sense of purpose. The next morning, Orhun arrives at the Night Sky Silver Rabbit's headquarters, fully equipped and ready to begin his new journey. Selma greets him with a smile, noting he looks much livelier and relieved now that he is finally free from the toxic environment of the hero's party. Orhun smirks and agrees, ready to show the world the true power of an adventurer who can master everything. Orhun steps into the office of Vince Briars, the head of the Night Sky Silver Rabbits. Vince welcomes him warmly and mentions that he already knows all about Orhun leaving the hero's party, meaning they do not need to waste time hiding their true intentions. Vince asks Selma to explain the details of the upcoming teaching expedition to their new recruit. Selma outlines the grueling schedule for the next 3 days, detailing their ambitious plan to take a group of completely inexperienced rookies from the first floor all the way down to the 51st floor of the Great Dungeon. She specifies that they need to reach the 21st floor by the end of the first day and the 36th floor by the second day. Vince then changes the subject slightly to express his absolute disbelief that the hero's party actually let someone of Orhun's caliber go. He points out that enchanters rarely get the credit they truly deserve, but he knows Orhun's support magic is incredibly fast, casting at least 4 times quicker than the average mage. Vince praises Orhun's unique ability to use multiple original spells simultaneously, perfectly analyze chaotic combat situations, predict enemy movements, and provide magical support at the exact right moment. He firmly believes the hero's party will become significantly weaker without Orhun around, which gives the Silver Rabbits a perfect opportunity to rise to the top of the guild rankings. Selma completely agrees with her boss, noting that truly powerful people like Orhun often do not stand out, unlike her own famous but somewhat overhyped reputation. Orhun listens quietly and then summarizes the expedition plan to ensure he understands, noting that 10 rookie parties will take turns fighting the monsters while 5 veteran escorts, including himself and Selma, handle any unexpected emergencies. Orhun quickly points out a major flaw in their strategy, questioning why they only have 5 escorts for such an insanely fast and dangerous schedule. He explains that normally, an expedition this risky would require multiple top-tier A-rank parties to ensure the rookies stay entirely safe. Selma tries to brush off his concern by claiming the extra stress will help the rookies grow and gain valuable combat experience, but Orhun easily sees right through her flimsy excuse. He realizes the clan definitely has some hidden political motive or sponsor pressure, forcing them to push this dangerous mission so quickly, but he also knows they will never reveal their true reasons to an outsider like him. Deciding not to pry any further into their clan politics, Orhun agrees to help them. Vince thanks him and immediately offers a massive reward of 2 gold pieces up front and 10 more upon the successful completion of the mission. Orhun accepts the offer, noting to himself that the amount equals an entire year's worth of living expenses, which shows just how highly the clan values his combat skills. The next morning, Orhun heads to the massive stone entrance of the Great Dungeon to meet up with the expedition group. He spots Selma and Sophia standing together and walks over to greet them. Sophia looks entirely different today, wearing a dark blue and white rookie uniform equipped with a red gem brooch instead of her usual clothes. Orhun quickly compliments her new outfit, causing Sophia to blush deeply and shyly thank him for the kind words. Selma notices the cute interaction and immediately starts teasing Orhun, asking if he has a lot of experience flattering women and if he currently has a girlfriend hiding somewhere. Orhun gets highly flustered and strongly denies it, explaining that he simply got used to talking to girls because several members of his old hero's party were female. Selma then asks where he is living now, and Orhun mentions he is currently staying at a local inn until he finds a permanent place to settle down. Selma mischievously turns to Sophia and asks if she plans on visiting Orhun at his inn, making Sophia panic instantly and yell at her older sister for being a huge jerk. Orhun laughs nervously at the sibling banter before Selma shifts the conversation, asking why he is standing so far away from the rest of the large group. Orhun explains that since he is an outsider with a lot of combat experience, he does not want his intimidating presence to make the new recruits nervous before their first dive. Selma appreciates his consideration but asks him to follow her so he can help loosen up the tense rookies. Sophia heads off to find her specific group while Selma introduces Orhun to the other 3 escorts standing nearby. Orhun meets Anthem, a sturdy defender, Bernard, another heavy defender, and Kathy, the party's dedicated healer. Selma vouches for Orhun's immense strength, and the others warmly welcome him to the team. Orhun introduces himself strictly as a frontline attacker, finalizing the escort party's balanced composition. However, Orhun secretly wonders if they originally planned to have someone else fill the attacker role before he showed up, feeling that something about the setup seems completely off. At that exact moment, he recalls a previous private conversation between Vince and Selma. Vince had expressed serious concern over Orhun joining the first group since Orhun is technically an enchanter just like Selma, and having 2 enchanters would ruin the party's combat balance. Selma had countered by revealing that Orhun specifically volunteered to act as a swordsman for this mission. She explained her deep frustration over the clan's complete lack of progress since the previous year, feeling entirely trapped and unable to recover their past losses. Selma saw Orhun's versatile skills as the perfect solution to finally push their clan forward. Back in the present, Selma steps up to address the massive crowd of anxious students gathered at the dungeon entrance. She hypes them up for their immediate descent to the 51st floor and then dramatically introduces Orhun as their special helper. She reveals to the entire crowd that Orhun is a former member of the legendary Heroes Party and has successfully reached the 94th floor of the dungeon. The rookies erupt into wild cheers, completely awestruck by the presence of a real high-level hero. Orhun feels a massive drop of sweat form on his face, extremely embarrassed by the over-the-top introduction. Selma whispers to him that part of their job is to help the rookies relax and focus, but Orhun still genuinely hopes the unwanted attention will not come back to bite him later. Selma then assigns Orhun to personally escort Group 10, explaining that they are the clan's most promising rookies and desperately need a veteran to show them the ropes. Orhun walks over to meet his assigned team and is highly surprised to find only 3 members standing there, noting that a smaller party is incredibly dangerous for inexperienced fighters. A young blonde boy named Logan confidently steps forward and claims the party is small, simply because nobody else can keep up with their immense skills. Logan introduces himself as the party leader and an enchanter, boldly declaring that he will eventually surpass Selma's legendary status. Orhun notes Logan's massive ego and worries heavily about his future attitude. Next, a pink-haired girl named Caroline eagerly introduces herself as a defender. Orhun points out her complete lack of armor, and Caroline proudly explains she is a dodge-type defender who relies on pure speed to avoid attacks and get close enough to kill monsters. Orhun knows dodge types struggle massively without extensive combat experience, but Caroline quickly dismisses his concerns, bragging about her natural talent while Logan yells at her for constantly ignoring their teachers. Finally, Sophia steps forward and politely introduces herself as a rear attacker and caster. Orhun instantly feels a wave of relief, finding extreme comfort in Sophia's completely normal and polite demeanor compared to her chaotic teammates. The group finally enters the dark, rocky caverns of the Great Dungeon to begin their rapid descent. As they walk through the dim tunnels, Caroline relentlessly pesters Orhun, demanding to know exactly why he left the famous Heroes Party and questioning if he views their clan as rivals. Orhun gets highly annoyed and bluntly tells her it is none of her business. Caroline pouts but quickly shifts her attention, asking if Orhun and Sophia already know each other. Sophia nervously admits that Orhun is the amazing guy who recently saved her life during a monster ambush. Caroline gets incredibly excited, telling Sophia she has absolutely nothing to worry about now that a real hero is actively protecting them. Orhun realizes Caroline's endless annoying questions were actually just a clever way to calm Sophia's nerves, making him respect the pink-haired girl's hidden consideration for her teammates. Suddenly, 2 massive white wolves with glowing yellow eyes ambush them from the dark shadows. Orhun calmly watches the beasts charge, easily leaping over the first wolf without breaking a sweat. He perfectly times his magical trap spells, causing sharp crystal pillars to erupt straight from the ground and instantly impale the wolves. The monsters dissolve into smoke as Orhun notes his traps are working flawlessly to eliminate enemies approaching from the rear without slowing down the group's pace. He actively wants to avoid wasting any time on useless battles. As the team pushes deeper into the dungeon, they finally reach the 20th floor. Orhun carefully observes Group 10's combat dynamics during their numerous fights. He realizes Logan is actually a genuine genius enchanter who could easily hold his own in a top-tier party right now, but he heavily loses points for being terrible at giving clear orders to his team. Meanwhile, Caroline showcases incredible speed as she dashes past enemies and slices them with her twin daggers, but her reckless habit of charging headfirst into danger absolutely terrifies Orhun. He also notes her daggers severely lack the sheer destructive power needed for their party setup. Sophia proves to be a highly solid fighter without any major rookie mistakes, though Orhun hopes she will become much more assertive once she fully bonds with her teammates. The group soon encounters the 20th floor boss, a massive green-skinned ogre wearing a skull necklace. Caroline immediately jumps into action, using her blinding speed to relentlessly attack the beast. The rookies successfully coordinate their strikes and quickly bring the massive monster crashing down into the dust. Selma approaches the exhausted but victorious group, enthusiastically congratulating them on their incredibly fast clear time. She instructs everyone to register their progress on the giant glowing blue teleportation crystal in the center of the cavern, marking the successful end of their first day's exploration. The group exits the dungeon and walks through a scenic canyon under a vibrant sunset. Orhun and Selma chat about the day's progress while walking back to town. Orhun praises Group 10's individual potential but expresses serious concern over their complete lack of teamwork, specifically pointing out Caroline's reckless behavior. They agree to continue working on improving the group's synergy the next day and part ways. Orhun heads back to his rustic room at the inn to rest. He picks up the latest newspaper and is completely shocked to see his own face printed on the front page. The article publicly details his forced expulsion from the Heroes Party and proudly announces his official replacement. Orhun feels a deep sting of betrayal, wishing his old friends had at least waited until the teaching expedition was over before leaking the humiliating news. He worries heavily that the rookies will read the paper and instantly lose all respect for him. Deciding there is absolutely no point in dwelling on the inevitable, he puts on his dark jacket and heads out into the bustling town square to clear his head. As he walks past the medieval timber-framed buildings, a familiar voice suddenly calls out his name. Orhun turns around and is completely stunned to see Luna, his childhood friend and a current member of the Heroes Party. Luna approaches him with a desperate, pleading look in her eyes. Orhun knows Luna was away on an errand when Oliver viciously kicked him out, and he admits to himself that he still has some lingering attachments to her because she always treated him kindly, even when the others grew cold and distant. Luna begs Orhun to come back to the party, claiming they still desperately need his strength. Orhun immediately guesses she is acting entirely on her own and asks if the others actually want him back, especially after publishing that humiliating newspaper article. Luna looks confused and admits she hasn't seen the paper yet, but she promises to do everything in her power to persuade the rest of the team to accept him again. She steps forward and firmly grabs his hands, desperately reminding him of the childhood promise they made with Oliver to clear the Great Dungeon together. Orhun stares at her in shock, deeply pained by the tragic memory. He gently pulls his hands away and bluntly tells her that Oliver was the one who kicked him out, making their dream completely impossible to fulfill now. He apologizes to Luna, turns his back, and walks away through a dark stone archway without looking back. Luna watches him leave with a completely heartbroken expression. As Orhun walks down the dusty path past the townspeople, he reflects on their happy childhood memories together. He accepts the painful reality that his old life permanently ended the moment they betrayed him. Knowing there is absolutely no place for him there anymore, Orhun looks forward with a hardened expression, determined to forge his own path forward because there is no going back. The next morning, Orhun arrives at the dungeon entrance and immediately notices the students whispering about him. They all read the morning newspaper article claiming he was banished from the Heroes Party for being incredibly weak. Logan steps up and points out the obvious inconsistency, reminding everyone that Orhun specifically told them he left the party on his own terms yesterday. Selma suddenly rushes over and apologizes profusely to Orhun for causing such a huge misunderstanding. She admits she hyped him up way too much to motivate the rookies, leading to the current confusion. Orhun casually waves it off, taking the blame for not being clear enough about his past and promising to back them up during the dive. The students quickly regain their confidence, knowing Orhun successfully survived the 94th floor. However, Orhun decides to be completely honest and blatantly admits that the newspaper is mostly right about his lack of strength, confessing that he is absolutely no hero right now. Sophia immediately jumps to his defense, loudly reminding everyone that he effortlessly slaughtered over a dozen orcs to save her just a few days ago. Orhun smiles and swears that while he might not be a legendary hero anymore, he will use his skills as a regular explorer to protect all of them and guide them safely to the 51st floor. Logan feels extremely annoyed and foolish for getting so excited over a washed-up hero, but the team moves forward anyway. The massive group enters the dark tunnels of the Great Dungeon to conquer floors 21 through 35. Orhun explains the strategy for the first stretch, stating that the veteran escorts will not issue any commands until they hit the 31st floor, forcing the rookies to take the lead and learn through actual combat. Caroline eagerly charges ahead and completely slices apart a giant frog monster with her twin daggers. Shortly after, Sophia uses her magic staff to blast a dangerous wolf creature with fire. Orhun watches them work and praises their efforts, feeling relieved that they still trust his guidance despite the bad press. They eventually reach the 31st floor, and Orhun officially takes command of the squad. He immediately senses a large group of monsters lurking in the shadows ahead and orders Caroline to run forward to draw their attention. Caroline happily complies and sprints toward the horde of club-wielding goblins to pull their aggro. Orhun then turns to Sophia and assigns her to take out the massive orcs hiding in the back of the enemy formation. He quickly orders Logan to cast a series of support spells to buff the girl's agility, technical skills, and magical power. Logan easily conjures the glowing magic circles to empower his teammates, but he secretly thinks Orhun's tactical orders are completely basic and unimpressive, assuming Orhun really is nothing special after all. The battle kicks off, but things quickly go wrong when a massive, muscular orc charges directly at Sophia. Due to her severe past trauma of being ambushed by orcs, Sophia completely freezes in pure terror and becomes totally unable to defend herself. Logan notices her panic and prepares to cast his own offensive magic to save her, fully believing Orhun is just going to stand there and let her die. However, Orhun secretly casts a highly advanced debuff spell to instantly lower the charging orc's agility, significantly slowing the beast down without anyone noticing. Orhun then calmly speaks to Sophia, gently reminding her that she is no longer fighting alone and has reliable comrades to protect her. His comforting words instantly snap Sophia out of her panic. She tightly grips her staff, channels her magical energy, and unleashes an incredibly powerful advanced spell called Fire Javelin. A massive blast of swirling flames erupts from her weapon and completely incinerates the giant orc in a blinding explosion. Everyone is entirely shocked by the sheer destructive power of her attack. Orhun admits he had absolutely no idea she could use such advanced magic, while Caroline jumps for joy and heavily praises her friend's magical talent. Logan stands in the back, totally confused by the entire sequence of events. He recognizes that Orhun perfectly debuffed the orc and orchestrated the kill, leaving him wondering how someone with such insane tactical awareness ever got banished from the hero's party. The group pushes deeper and finally reaches the 35th floor, where they are suddenly ambushed by a terrifying death tarantula. The giant purple spider is incredibly dangerous, and Logan instantly panics, loudly declaring that their rookie party is nowhere near strong enough to defeat a boss-level monster. Orhun completely ignores his panic and coldly issues a rapid series of commands. He tells Logan to immediately cast agility and durability buffs on Caroline, while refreshing Sophia's magic boost. Logan complains that Orhun is just repeating the same boring orders, but he casts the spells anyway. Orhun then orders Caroline to jump directly over the spider and slash its back to draw its anger. He explicitly warns her that the beast is highly venomous and instructs her to focus entirely on dodging its attacks instead of dealing heavy damage. Caroline confidently leaps into the air and plunges her daggers into the spider's back, causing the monster to thrash wildly and focus all its attention on her. With the spider fully distracted by Caroline's evasive maneuvers, Orhun orders Logan to dedicate all his focus to keeping Caroline's mobility buffs active. He then commands Sophia to pin the monster down with her offensive magic. Sophia launches a barrage of sharp wind blades that repeatedly strike the spider, but the injured beast suddenly retaliates by spitting a massive stream of thick white webs, completely wrapping Caroline up in a sticky cocoon. Caroline screams for help as she struggles against the unbreakable threads. Logan completely freaks out, realizing he has hit his absolute limit of casting 3 spells at once, and wonders if Orhun actually predicted this disastrous outcome. Orhun remains perfectly calm and immediately orders Sophia to prepare her heavy rock arrow spell. He then tells Logan to cast another magic boost on Sophia to maximize her damage output. Turning his attention to the trapped Caroline, Orhun instructs her to use the sharpness buff she received earlier to cut herself free. Empowered by the magic, Caroline easily slices through the thick webs with her glowing daggers and escapes unharmed. With the spider completely outmaneuvered, Sophia drops a massive barrage of giant stone stalactites from the ceiling directly onto the beast, crushing it instantly. The girls cheer wildly in celebration of their massive victory. Orhun approaches Logan and heavily praises his flawless support magic, crediting him for making the entire strategy work. Logan is completely taken aback by the genuine compliment and sincerely thanks Orhun for his leadership. The expedition successfully wraps up for the day, and Selma gathers all the students outside the dungeon entrance, reminding them to get plenty of rest because tomorrow is their final test. As the massive crowd disperses, Logan and his veteran teammate approach Orhun on the dirt path and invite him to grab dinner with them. Orhun happily accepts the invitation, feeling a massive wave of relief that his new peers are completely ignoring the humiliating newspaper article. Later, Logan gathers with Caroline and Sophia in a private room to seriously discuss Orhun's true capabilities. Logan asks Sophia to explain exactly how Orhun fought when he saved her in the dungeon a few days ago. Sophia enthusiastically details how Orhun unleashed a massive wind blast and cast a sharpness buff on his own sword before slicing through the entire horde of orcs. Logan is completely baffled by this information, explaining that sharpness buffs are strictly designed for weapons, not for boosting a person's physical stats. He cannot comprehend why Orhun recently converted into a frontline attacker when he acted like the most perfect enchanter during their entire expedition today. Logan admits to the girls that he completely misunderstood Orhun earlier and feels stupid for ever doubting him. He breaks down the combat encounters, explaining that Orhun secretly used an incredibly high-level agility debuff on the orc to save Sophia, a spell so difficult that even a legendary enchanter like Selma struggles to cast it reliably. Logan also analyzes the Death Tarantula fight, pointing out that Orhun executed the absolute perfect combat formation. By using Caroline as a pure dodge defender to distract the boss, Orhun created the perfect opening for Sophia to attack and Logan to support. Logan notes that Orhun even flawlessly tracked the exact expiration times of all their magical buffs and perfectly predicted the spider's web attack before it even happened. Logan fully admits that Orhun is an absolute genius whose tactical mind operates on a completely untouchable level. Fired up by this realization, Logan aggressively vows to steal all of Orhun's techniques and strategies to become an elite enchanter himself. Caroline and Sophia also get incredibly hyped up, promising to train harder and maximize their potential for the final day. Meanwhile, Orhun sits in a lively tavern enjoying a massive feast with two veteran escorts. The veterans assure Orhun that the newspaper article was totally uncalled for and tell him to just forget about his old toxic teammates. They then ask him why he chose to convert to a swordsman when he is clearly an elite enchanter. Orhun happily explains that his grandfather was a legendary explorer who once annihilated a massive monster with a single sword strike. Witnessing that incredible feat as a child made Orhun dream of becoming a master swordsman. He proudly earned the attacker role in the hero's party, but things quickly went downhill when they reached the extremely dangerous lower floors of the dungeon. Because the monsters became significantly stronger, the party's clearing pace slowed down drastically. Instead of taking the time to properly train and adapt, the party became obsessed with rushing forward and desperately needed an enchanter to buff their stats. Since Orhun was a versatile jack-of-all-trades who could easily learn any skill, the party selfishly forced him to abandon his sword and become their dedicated support mage. Orhun firmly tells the veterans that this was a terrible, short-sighted strategy. He insists that they should have slowed their pace and focused on genuinely getting stronger instead of relying on cheap buffs to survive. He confidently states that because the hero's party refused to fix their core weaknesses, they have absolutely zero chance of ever clearing past the 94th floor without him holding their hands. The veterans are fascinated by his logic and ask him to describe his ultimate ideal for a swordsman. Orhun smiles and declares that he wants to become a supreme jack-of-all-trades who can completely solo the deepest, most dangerous floors of the dungeon using a perfect mix of blade and magic. His friends raise their glasses, fully supporting his ambitious dream. Later that night, Caroline and Sophia share a steamy hot shower to wash off the dungeon grime. Caroline excitedly notes that tomorrow is the absolute final day of their teaching expedition, but then her tone shifts as she realizes they will have to say a permanent goodbye to Orhun once it ends. She hates the idea of losing him and boldly suggests that Sophia just ask Orhun to permanently join the Night Sky Silver Rabbits clan. Sophia gets totally flustered, insisting that Orhun is nothing like her pushy sister Selma and that forcing him to join would be incredibly selfish. However, as Caroline continues to gently pressure her, Sophia admits that she would be completely heartbroken if she never got to see Orhun again, and she finally agrees to at least try asking him to stay. The next morning, the sun rises over the massive rocky canyon as Orhun and the entire group of students gather at the dungeon entrance, fully prepared and highly motivated to conquer the final, most dangerous day of their expedition. As everyone gets ready at the dungeon entrance, Caroline playfully reminds Orhun that they expect a nice reward if they do well today. While actively teasing Sophia about wanting Orhun to permanently join their Night Sky Rabbits clan, Sophia blushes and gets completely flustered, but Orhun just laughs it off and tells them all to stay sharp so they can make it back safely. While they prepare to head inside, Orhun overhears some other students gossiping about the newly reformed Heroes Party. The rumors say Oliver's team is heading straight down to the 92nd floor today to test out their teamwork with their brand new enchanter. Orhun finds this completely ridiculous, knowing that starting on such a dangerously deep floor just to practice teamwork is a terrible idea since they should obviously start on an easier floor to build chemistry. However, he quickly brushes it off, reminding himself that whatever happens to them is no longer his problem. Meanwhile, deep inside the dungeon on the 92nd floor, the Heroes Party is doing exactly what the rumors suggested. Oliver is acting incredibly cocky, proudly bragging about how much better off they are without that loser Orhun dragging them down. He tells their new green-haired enchanter, Philly, to show them what she can do, fully expecting her to prove that kicking Orhun out was the right choice. However, the reality of their situation is completely different from what Oliver confidently believes. Just 2 days ago, during a lavish welcome party for Philly, the team was celebrating their new top-tier enchanter from the Western Dungeon. They drank and ate heavily, complaining about how Orhun was too stingy with the party's funds and celebrating their new freedom. Right in the middle of the party, Luna arrived late and was absolutely horrified to discover that Orhun was suddenly working with the Night Sky Rabbits. She demanded to know what happened while she was gone, and Oliver casually explained that they finally kicked the jack-of-all-trades out for being too weak. Luna was completely stunned by their stupidity. She angrily opposed their decision, straight up telling them that Orhun was the absolute core of their party and that they would never survive the lower floors without his guidance. Derek and Oliver completely dismissed her warnings, claiming that Philly was a way better enchanter and that Orhun's buffs were lame. When Oliver announced his plan to test Philly right on the 92nd floor, Luna explicitly warned them that a terrifying black dragon lives down there and that they only barely survived fighting it last time because Orhun was there to manage everything. Oliver arrogantly brushed off her perfectly valid concerns, insisting that they were only going to test their teamwork on lesser monsters and wouldn't actually fight the dragon. He then formally ordered Luna to fall in line, leaving her completely stressed out. Back in the present, the Heroes Party engages a massive mammoth monster, but their so-called perfect teamwork immediately starts falling apart. Oliver swings his golden sword to slice off the beast's tusk, but his attacks barely scratch it. He immediately complains that his sword feels ridiculously heavy and that his stat buffs keep wearing off almost instantly. Philly panics and desperately tries to reapply her magic circles, but she completely struggles to keep up with the team's rapid movements. When the mammoth counters with a massive beam of energy, Derek barely manages to block the attack with his shield, getting violently thrown backward in the process. He yells at Anneli to flank the monster, so she tries to retaliate by casting her signature fire bullet spell. However, the resulting explosion is pathetically small and completely ineffective. Oliver furiously yells at Philly to buff Anneli, but Philly cries out that she already did. Anneli manages to cast a slightly larger fire spell, but the mammoth easily brushes it off and fires powerful energy beams right back at them, scattering the entire team across the rocky floor. Oliver screams at Philly to monitor the monster's attack patterns and warn them before it strikes, but Philly tearfully admits that she is too overwhelmed just trying to keep their basic buffs active. The entire party is left battered and exhausted from fighting a single standard monster. Oliver is completely baffled as to why his attacks are so incredibly weak today. Luna finally steps forward, asking if they seriously haven't figured out the real reason behind their sudden massive drop in power. Before she can even explain the truth, a massive, terrifying black dragon suddenly drops from the dark ceiling and violently crushes the mammoth under its giant claws. Oliver completely freaks out, knowing the black dragon is a lower floor boss that shouldn't even be wandering around this area. Luna immediately screams at everyone to run away, but Oliver and Derek stubbornly refuse to retreat. Delusional from their past victories, they arrogantly believe they can easily kill it again. Anneli confidently steps up and casts her absolute strongest explosive fire spell directly at the dragon's head, creating a massive explosion. The smoke clears, and the dragon is completely unharmed. It instantly retaliates with a massive burst of flames, blasting Anneli across the cave and leaving her severely injured on the ground. Derek is also caught in the blast and completely incapacitated. Seeing half her team wiped out in seconds, Philly completely freezes in pure terror. Luna desperately rushes over to heal Annalie and Derek while screaming at Oliver to buy them some time. The black dragon begins charging its most powerful breath attack, so Oliver activates his ultimate move, Divine Flash, and charges straight at the beast. He clashes his glowing sword against the dragon's breath, creating a massive explosion of yellow light, but he is violently blown away by the impact. As the smoke clears, the dragon remains entirely unbothered. Oliver falls to his knees, completely terrified and broken. He finally begs Luna to tell him what to do. Luna furiously yells at him to act like a leader, but seeing that he is paralyzed by fear, she makes the call herself. She tells Oliver to smash a fickle gate, an extremely rare emergency escape item that forcibly teleports the user to a random boss room. Even though they will have to immediately fight another boss, it is their absolute only chance to escape the black dragon right now. Oliver agrees and shatters the vial on the ground, opening a glowing purple portal. The team quickly grabs their injured members and jumps through, landing in a snowy crystalline landscape. However, to their absolute horror, the black dragon follows them right through the portal before it closes. But before the dragon can attack them again, the portal expands and the dragon flies straight into another section of the dungeon and completely vanishes. While Derek and the others breathe a massive sigh of relief, Luna is absolutely horrified. She realizes that the black dragon has just teleported into a random boss area where other unsuspecting adventurers are currently fighting. She immediately orders the team to rush back to the guild to request a forced recall, a special guild card function that will safely teleport every single adventurer out of the dungeon before the dragon slaughters them all. Oliver hesitates, intensely worrying about the severe penalty the guild will give them for causing such a massive disaster, but Luna completely ignores his cowardly whining and tells him to hurry. She then drops the ultimate bombshell, stating that after they evacuate everyone, they will have to go back in and fight the dragon themselves, but they must swap Philly out and beg Orhun to come back. Oliver furiously refuses to ask Orhun for help, stubbornly insisting that Philly is way more talented. Luna finally snaps and forces Oliver to face reality. She asks him if he knows how support magic works, and he answers that the enchanter decides how much to raise a stat, while the target's body determines how long the buff lasts. Luna confirms this and explains that Philly's buffs are wearing off in under a minute because Oliver and the rest of the party actually have incredibly high natural magic resistance. Their bodies naturally reject regular support magic, making them an absolute nightmare for any normal enchanter to work with. Orhun was the absolute only person who perfectly managed their complicated stats and kept them alive. Oliver still doesn't understand why his attacks are so weak, arguing that Philly is still a stronger mage. Luna completely shatters his ego right then and there. She reveals that Orhun secretly developed original support magic that increased their attack potency by 50 times. She explains that even the absolute best enchanters in the world, like Selma from the Night Sky Rabbits, can only boost stats by 10 times. Orhun's magic was completely off the charts. Furthermore, Orhun applied his magic directly to their weapons and armor, entirely absorbing the massive weight of their gear, which is exactly why Oliver's sword suddenly feels impossibly heavy today. Luna explains that Oliver and Annalie only ever landed powerful attacks because Orhun was secretly carrying 98% of the workload. Because Orhun's buffs were so insanely overpowered, Oliver and Annalie got completely arrogant, stopped training properly, and started relying entirely on his magic to do all the heavy lifting without even realizing it. Luna bluntly tells Oliver that he barely gathered any magical energy during his divine flash attack because he was so used to Orhun just amplifying his weak efforts. The devastating truth finally hits Oliver like a truck. His incredible strength, his legendary speed, his devastating attacks, it was all completely fake. He was never a powerful hero. He was just a perfectly puppeted weapon wielded by Orhun's genius magic. Defeated and totally humiliated, the hero's party limps out of the dungeon and returns to the surface. As they walk through the massive rocky canyon, other adventurers spot them and excitedly praise them as the legendary hero's party who easily conquer the deepest floors. Hearing their innocent cheers absolutely crushes Oliver. He grinds his teeth in pure agony, fully realizing that his arrogance just unleashed a deadly black dragon on innocent people. He screams in frustration, loudly admitting to himself that they are completely fake heroes who put everyone in danger. He breaks down, agonizing over the fact that he genuinely believed he was the one who defeated the Black Dragon with his own strength, only to finally realize that his entire party is absolutely nothing without Orhun. Completely unaware of the disastrous situation unfolding with his former party, Orhun stands in a dark cavern on the 36th floor with his new companions from the Night Sky Silver Rabbits. He explains to the new recruits that their main goal for the final day of their expedition is to clear the dungeon all the way down to the 50th floor before using their teleportation crystals to head back to the surface. Caroline is extremely eager to get moving, excitedly talking about how she absolutely cannot wait to slaughter some monsters. Orhun sighs and reminds her that she is a defender, meaning she cannot just blindly rush at the enemies every single time. Caroline stubbornly argues that if she fights alone on the front lines, everyone else will have to work less and stay completely out of danger. The recruits then bring up the legendary adventurer Albert Sensible, the undisputed former ace of their clan who tragically died fighting the Black Dragon on the 92nd floor last year. They solemnly recount how Albert sacrificed himself to protect his own defender, which only fuels Caroline's misguided belief that she needs to keep her teammates as far away from the action as possible to prevent anyone else from losing their smile. Orhun strictly warns her against this reckless mindset, explaining that there is a severe limit to what an individual can accomplish alone and that she needs to start thinking of herself as part of a cohesive team. Sophia and Logan quickly chime in, begging Orhun to give them advice on how to get stronger too, and Orhun promises to help them all out. As they continue their descent through the 36th floor, the clan's red-haired leader Selma, who is also Sophia's older sister, walks alongside Orhun and praises his performance. She notes that the new recruits have really taken a liking to him despite the nasty rumors spread by his former party. Selma reflects on how incredibly difficult it has been to fill the massive hole left by Albert's death, as he was always someone the entire clan could count on in a crisis. She then subtly tries to recruit Orhun to join them permanently as a swordsman. She explains that their party doesn't actually need another enchanter since she is already considered the best enchanter on the continent, but she intends to closely watch his combat skills during the upcoming floor boss battle to see what he is truly capable of. The group eventually reaches the 40th floor, a massive cavern filled with sharp stalactites and glowing green pools. Selma announces that they will split into smaller teams to practice navigating the maze and finding the boss room on their own. Orhun is assigned to watch over Caroline, Sophia, and Logan in Group 10. The recruits admit they are a little nervous about being on their own, but Orhun reassures them that gathering information and mapping out the paths is a crucial part of being an adventurer. The kids then eagerly ask Orhun to tell them stories about the deeper floors since he is one of the very few people who has ever been down there. Orhun casually describes the lower floors starting at floor 76 as freezing snow-covered mountains filled with ice lizards, and the deepest floors starting at 91 as rotting, dangerous swamps. Suddenly, Orhun gets a terrible creeping sensation and realizes that the cavern is completely empty of monsters, almost as if the creatures are actively hiding from something much more dangerous. Caroline completely ignores the creepy atmosphere and loudly shouts for the monsters to come out and fight. Almost immediately, a fast and deadly azure goblin ambushes them from the shadows. Caroline excitedly draws her curved blade and recklessly charges straight at it, completely ignoring Orhun's desperate warning to stop. Before the monster can strike her down, Orhun quickly extends his hand and casts a powerful debuff to severely lower the goblin's agility. Thanks to his quick intervention, Caroline easily slices the monster to pieces and joyfully celebrates her victory. Orhun immediately scolds her for running off on her own, explaining that azure goblins are incredibly fast and strong, and she would have been seriously injured if he hadn't slowed it down. He reiterates that the defender is the core of the party and that her reckless actions will only put her friends in even more danger when they are forced to step in and save her. Caroline finally apologizes, so Orhun offers to teach her a proactive defense strategy called active defense. He explains that every living creature must physically prepare before launching an attack, such as stepping forward right before throwing a punch. He teaches her that if she can perfectly read the enemy's movements and slash their legs right at that exact moment, she can completely lock down their attacks before they even happen. Caroline is absolutely thrilled to learn this and promises to focus on drawing the enemy's attention properly. Logan then eagerly asks Orhun to teach him about debuffs, but Orhun explains that debuffs are actually an incredibly difficult and inefficient type of support magic to rely on. He reveals that floor bosses and high-level monsters on the deeper floors possess massive magic resistance, making debuffs almost completely useless unless the caster knows their exact elemental weaknesses. Instead, Orhun decides to teach Logan about trap magic. He suddenly tells the group to look behind them, and when they turn around, they see two massive white wolves charging straight at them. Before the wolves can even attack, they step onto a glowing golden magic circle Orhun had secretly placed on the ground earlier. The trap violently explodes, summoning a massive field of sharp icy spikes that completely impales and destroys the beast. Orhun explains that setting up traps to cut off the enemy's escape routes and prevent ambushes from behind allows the rest of the party to focus entirely on the enemies in front of them. Logan is completely blown away by this tactical approach and passionately declares that he wants to become exactly that kind of strategic enchanter. Finally, Orhun turns his attention to Sophia and teaches her about a highly advanced technique called parallel construction, which allows a mage to cast multiple spells at the exact same time. He explains that single spells are rarely enough to kill powerful monsters on the lower floors, and waiting to cast them back to back leaves a mage completely vulnerable during the preparation time. By starting to construct a second spell while the first is only halfway ready, she can completely eliminate her downtime and chain weaker spells together efficiently. He mentions that her sister Selma is so skilled that she can cast 5 spells simultaneously, leaving Sophia in absolute awe. Sophia shyly admits that she would rather have Orhun teach her than her sister, and Orhun nervously agrees to help her as long as Selma approves. Meanwhile, back on the surface, Luna violently bursts through the doors of the Guildmaster's office, desperately demanding an immediate forced teleport for every single adventurer currently inside the Great Dungeon. The Guildmaster is completely shocked and heavily hesitates, explaining that pulling everyone out at once requires an unbelievable amount of mana and can only be used in the most extreme emergencies. Luna urgently reveals the horrifying truth that the Black Dragon managed to use a fickle gate to escape the 92nd floor and could literally appear anywhere in the dungeon at any moment to slaughter unsuspecting explorers. Realizing the catastrophic danger, the Guildmaster immediately authorizes the spell and gathers all the top mages in the wood-paneled council chamber to begin charging the massive teleportation circle. The guild elders furiously yell at Oliver and his party for causing such a massive disaster, telling them that many innocent lives are now at risk because of their incompetence. The Guildmaster strictly orders the heroes' party to head back into the dungeon and defeat the Black Dragon the second the evacuation is complete. Oliver and his teammates are completely paralyzed by fear, knowing they stand absolutely no chance, but Luna steps up and declares that they have one major condition before they head back in. She tells the group that they must prioritize pulling out the adventurers on the 40th to 50th floors first. When her party members angrily ask why, Luna coldly reminds them that Orhun is currently down there and that they are officially the weakest party without his buffs, meaning their survival completely depends on getting him back. Back in the dungeon, Orhun's group finally reaches the 50th floor and prepares to face the area's boss. Selma instructs the new recruits to stay back in the safe zone while she and the chaperones handle the fight alone so the kids can learn from watching an advanced party in action. A massive, 4-armed blue monster with bright red hair and a giant bone necklace emerges from the shadows, roaring fiercely while wielding a heavy spiked club. The advanced party immediately springs into action, displaying flawless teamwork. The silver-armored knight perfectly executes active defense, locking down the giant's movements and blocking its massive strikes, while Selma seamlessly uses parallel construction to surround the area with multiple glowing green magic circles. They efficiently corner the beast, and with one final coordinated strike, the knight unleashes a powerful glowing slash that destroys the monster, turning it into a dropping gem. The recruits are completely amazed by how fast and calculated the battle was, finally understanding what true teamwork looks like. However, their expedition takes an unexpected turn when another massive boss suddenly appears in the cavern. A giant purple crab monster with incredibly thick armor and massive pincers charges at them. Selma's party struggles to deal significant damage to the crab's tough shell, so they rely on Orhun to break its defenses. Orhun steps up, casually drawing his silver sword, and lunges straight at the giant beast. He secretly activates his own original spell called Impact, a highly advanced cheat ability that forcibly enhances his equipment's power and toughness by 100 times for a single fraction of a second. His blade glows with blinding blue energy as he slices cleanly through the crab's massive, heavily armored claw in one devastating strike. The rest of the group is absolutely stunned by his absurd physical power, completely unaware of the overpowered magic he just used. With the crab's main weapon destroyed, Selma orders a full party attack, and they quickly obliterate the monster with a barrage of powerful spells, completely splitting its shell in half. With the boss defeated and the 50th floor officially cleared, Selma proudly announces that they are done for the day and can finally head home to celebrate their success. The recruits cheer happily, and Orhun smiles, glad that everything went smoothly and that nobody got hurt. But just as he crosses his arms to relax, the terrible creeping sensation from earlier suddenly returns, hitting him harder than ever before. Before anyone can even process what is happening, the dark rocky ceiling above them violently shatters like fragile glass, revealing a blinding, iridescent purple dimensional rift. The entire cavern shakes violently as a massive, terrifying creature bursts through the shattered space and crashes heavily onto the cavern floor. The recruits scream in absolute terror as the dust clears, revealing the monstrous black dragon with its glowing yellow eyes and razor-sharp teeth glaring directly down at them. Orhun stares up at the impossibly powerful beast in complete shock, realizing that the catastrophic danger he sensed all day has just landed right on top of them. The recruits are absolutely terrified as the massive black dragon glares down at them, its oppressive presence making it hard for anyone to even breathe. Selma realizes she needs to take command immediately, but the sheer terror of facing a legendary monster that slaughters helpless adventurers completely paralyzes the entire group. Orhun quickly assesses the disastrous situation and realizes the actual boss of this floor is already dead, meaning if they can just get past the dragon and reach the teleportation crystal, they can all escape to the surface. He briefly considers making a run for it, knowing that monsters usually target large groups, so the dragon would likely ignore him and slaughter the recruits, allowing him to survive. However, he quickly rejects the cowardly thought, clenching his fist and drawing his silver sword. He vows to protect the rookies no matter the cost and abandons any idea of just buying time, realizing the only way everyone survives is if he actually steps up and defeats the black dragon himself. He shouts for the chaperones to take a defensive posture and do whatever it takes to keep the recruits safe while he takes the vanguard. The dragon opens its massive jaws and unleashes a devastating beam of bright yellow energy straight at the group. Kathy quickly casts a magic ward, creating a glowing green hexagonal barrier around the recruits, but the blast is overwhelmingly powerful. Just as the barrier is about to break, Orhun charges forward, using his own magic to reinforce the shield for a split second before leaping through the massive fiery explosion. He darts toward the dragon and strikes its head with his dual swords, deliberately aiming for the brief moment when the creature closes its eyes to protect them. His rapid strikes create a massive explosion of sparks and dust, but as the smoke clears, the dragon stands completely unharmed. Orhun realizes his normal attacks will never be enough to pierce its incredibly thick scales. He reassures the terrified recruits that he has a solid plan and tells them to stay put while he deals with the monster alone. He deliberately draws the dragon's aggro, shouting and waving his sword to make sure it focuses entirely on him instead of the vulnerable kids. Selma watches in panic, remembering how this exact monster killed their former ace, Albert, and wonders if they should really let Orhun fight such a beast by himself. The dragon unleashes another massive torrent of fire directly at Orhun, but he calmly raises his hand and casts Reflective Wall, a glowing spherical shield that bounces the scorching flames right back at the beast. The dragon takes the hit but still remains completely uninjured by its own fire. Seeing this, Orhun accepts that he has to take some serious risks if he wants to win. He activates his support magic, casting status up to double all of his physical stats. Selma is totally shocked, noting that casting support magic usually just resets the timer on the buff, making it impossible to stack the same spell. But Orhun completely defies common sense, continuously casting the spell over and over using parallel construction. He yells out as he pushes his body to the absolute limit, casting the buff 3, 4, 5 and eventually 8 times in a row. The immense strain of parallel casting so many spells simultaneously takes a heavy toll on him, causing blood to drip from his nose and mouth as a vibrant yellow aura of electricity engulfs his entire body. He explains that 5 consecutive casts effectively multiply his status 32 times over, but the extreme burden on his body means he cannot keep the power up for long. Moving at blinding speeds, he charges at the dragon, his movements so fast he looks like a blur of yellow light to the onlookers. The recruits watch in absolute awe as he easily dodges the dragon's incoming attacks and runs straight up its massive body, his blade sparking wildly against its thick armor. When the dragon tries to blast him out of the air, Orhun leaps higher and seemingly creates invisible stepping stones to launch himself around the cavern. A recruit wonders if it is magic, but Orhun explains it is a special ability called Magical Convergence, which allows him to gather ambient magic into a single physical point to materialize it and safely propel himself through the air. He then casts Sharpness Up and Durable Up on his sword, combining them with his original cheat spell, Impact. He dives down and strikes the dragon with a devastating blow, unleashing a massive pillar of blue light that completely shatters the dragon's tough scales and sends it crashing heavily to the cavern floor. The recruits cheer wildly, amazed that he actually managed to pierce the dragon's legendary armor. However, Selma knows the fight is far from over. She realizes Orhun is doing the impossible by chaining support magic, adding effects to his weapons, and using his unique impact spell, effectively fighting like an entire high-level party combined into one single person. She wonders if she should step in to help, but she quickly realizes that even the strongest members of her clan could not beat this monster. Her only job is to firmly protect the new recruits so Orhun can focus entirely on the battle without worrying about collateral damage. Suddenly, the cavern shakes again as the black dragon rises back to its feet, now radiating a terrifying purple aura of pure magical energy. Selma feels an overwhelming sense of fear welling up inside her as the dragon unleashes its true power. This oppressive presence reminds Orhun of his painful past. Deep in his memories, he thinks back to when he and his friend Oliver were just young children in combat training. Their peaceful village was suddenly attacked by ruthless bandits who slaughtered everyone and burned their homes to the ground. The two young boys stood amidst the bloody corpses of their neighbors and family, crying in absolute agony over their utter helplessness. Later, as they stood before the fresh wooden burial mounds under the morning sun, Oliver clenched his fists and swore to get stronger so nobody could ever steal anything from him again. Orhun, with tears streaming down his dirt-stained face, made his own desperate vow to become strong enough to protect everything he cares about so he would never have to experience such horrific loss ever again. Drawing immense strength from this tragic memory, Orhun tells himself that he just needs to drive away the horror right in front of him to keep his childhood promise. The dragon begins gathering magical power from the surrounding area, turning the purple mist into a deadly weapon. Selma warns the others that this is the Black Dragon's strongest spell, the very one that has killed countless seasoned adventurers. Orhun realizes the dragon is finally taking the fight seriously, as it can transform the ambient magic into countless projectiles that attack from all directions at once. Refusing to back down, Orhun charges forward, weaving through a relentless barrage of purple energy blasts. He casts Fire Bullet, launching himself toward the beast and striking its back, but the dragon proves to be incredibly resilient. It quickly changes its attack pattern, firing faster and much more unpredictable blasts that force Orhun to desperately defend himself. He casts Rock Wall, pulling up massive slabs of stone from the ground to block the incoming needles of purple energy. When the dragon fires a massive, completely unavoidable beam, Orhun barely survives by hiding behind a pre-planted reflective wall. The recruits watch in amazement as Orhun perfectly executes the active defense strategy he taught them earlier, predicting the dragon's movements and pinning it down so it cannot target the group. Despite his incredible performance, Orhun is completely exhausted. He thinks back to his days in the Heroes Party, remembering how Derek and Luna would always block heavy attacks, and Ellie would pin the enemy down with spells, and Oliver would deliver the final crushing blow. Now, he is forced to fulfill every single combat role by himself. Determined to prove he does not need them, he vows to win this fight completely alone. He activates a highly complex magic circle on the ground beneath the dragon. He explains that it is a trap spell called Raise and Repeat, which secretly absorbs the magical power from the surrounding area and fires the enemy's previous attack back at a much higher intensity. The trap detonates perfectly, engulfing the dragon in a series of massive fiery explosions. The recruits are completely blown away, realizing Orhun is using everything he taught them about trap magic and parallel construction to turn the entire battlefield to his advantage. Orhun proudly declares that his trap is just as strong as Anili's best attack magic. However, he knows it will not be enough to finish off the incredibly tough floor boss. He gathers all his remaining magical power, channeling it into a pitch-black blade of pure shadow energy. He declares that he wants to be a swordsman capable of fulfilling every single role in a party. With a fierce shout, he unleashes Divine Flash combined with Impact, sending a colossal wave of purple and white energy slicing directly through the cavern. The devastating attack hits the dragon head-on, completely obliterating its massive body into thick clouds of smoke and debris. The recruits cheer, fully believing the battle is finally over, but Orhun suddenly stares in shock as a massive, glowing red eye glares at him through the settling dust. The dragon actually sacrificed its own tail and lower body to survive the blast, and its massive, sharp-toothed head lunges right at him. Orhun realizes that his blade is shattered and his buffs have completely run out. Soma tries to cast her own status up to help him, but her magic simply fizzles out. Orhun yells at her to focus solely on protecting the recruits, refusing her support because the sudden change in stats would throw off his carefully honed timing. He knows both he and the dragon are on their absolute last legs, ready to end things once and for all. Orhun casts an ultimate spell called Destruction. A massive pillar of dark energy erupts from the rocky ground, swirling around him as he converges all of his highly amplified magic into a colossal, glowing, pitch-black greatsword. He explains that even without using Impact, this spell's sheer power far exceeds any special rank magic in existence. Gripping the massive weapon, Orhun launches himself straight at the dragon, dodging a chaotic flurry of green and purple magic seals meant to stop him. As he violently closes the distance, he casts weight up to vastly increase his physical momentum, turning himself into a radiant yellow streak of unstoppable force. He plunges the massive greatsword directly into the dragon's skull, triggering an absolutely blinding explosion of blue, yellow, and red light that completely shatters the surrounding cavern and vaporizes the remaining parts of the black dragon. The shockwave sends debris flying everywhere, but the recruits are kept entirely safe behind their defensive barriers. As the thick clouds of smoke and dust finally begin to settle, a heavy, eerie silence falls over the ruined battlefield. Selma and the other girls rush forward through the haze, desperately looking for Orhun among the wreckage. They find him standing amidst the rubble, heavily panting and completely drained of energy, but still gripping the hilt of his sword. He gives them a faint, relieved smile before his exhausted body finally gives out. Selma quickly steps in and catches him before he hits the ground, tears of relief streaming down her face. The rest of the recruits eagerly run over, cheering wildly and celebrating their miraculous survival. They are all completely overwhelmed with joy, knowing that Orhun single-handedly defeated the legendary Black Dragon and kept every single one of them alive against impossible odds. Just as the massive dust cloud from the explosion begins to settle, a brilliant teleportation light suddenly engulfs the remaining members of the expedition party, forcefully ripping them out of the dungeon and depositing them back onto the rocky surface under the clear blue sky. The large crowd of students and chaperones is completely disoriented, loudly murmuring and looking around in utter confusion about what just happened. Their confusion quickly turns to absolute shock when they look ahead and see the colossal, lifeless corpse of the legendary Black Dragon sprawled out across the hexagonal stone pillars. Orhun is standing just a few feet away, looking completely exhausted and leaning heavily against his blue-haired friend Holy as she supports his weight. The entire group stares in disbelief, unable to process that the infamous beast is already dead. Holy quickly pieces the situation together and loudly realizes that Orhun actually stayed behind and fought the terrifying monster all by himself to ensure everyone else could escape. Hearing this, Derek, the arrogant blonde knight from Orhun's former party, aggressively pushes his way to the front of the crowd. He completely loses his temper and furiously refuses to believe that a supposedly weak enchanter like Orhun could ever take down such a powerful boss alone. He starts shouting wild accusations and throwing a massive tantrum, desperately trying to protect his fragile ego. However, Holy immediately steps right into his path to defend her friend. She coldly glares at the furious knight and bluntly tells him to finally accept his own weakness instead of constantly lashing out at people who are clearly stronger than him. Her harsh words completely shatter Derek's pride, and in a fit of pure rage, he draws his weapon and charges right at her. Completely unfazed by his aggressive advance, Holy simply calls upon her glowing fairy companion, Pixie, and calmly summons a highly complex gravity magic circle directly beneath Derek's armored boots. The incredibly heavy spell instantly forces the fully armored knight to his knees, completely paralyzing his body and pinning him helplessly against the hard rocky floor. Holy casually stands over him, stating that the fight is already over and commanding everyone to stand down. Derek is left to grit his teeth and sweat in absolute humiliation while his party leader, Oliver, watches the entire pathetic display with bitter frustration. Later that night, back at the peaceful academy campus, Sophia sits alone at her wooden desk in her dorm room, happily writing her official expedition report. She is completely infatuated with Orhun and simply cannot wipe the huge smile off her face as she thinks about how incredibly cool he looked while fighting the dragon. She deeply admires his overwhelming strength and the gentle, caring expression he always shows her, absolutely thrilled and blushing as she realizes he saved her life yet again. Just then, the door creaks open and her older sister, Selma, drags herself into the room looking completely drained and utterly exhausted from the day's stressful events. Selma barely manages to greet her sister before collapsing face first onto her bed, groaning that she just wants to sleep. Seeing her older sister so wiped out, Sophia cheerfully suggests they go down to the academy's hot baths to relax their muscles. A little while later, the two sisters are soaking in the steaming water, enjoying the thick mist and the soothing heat. Sophia excitedly brings up Orhun's unbelievable battle against the Black Dragon. Selma sighs and openly admits that Orhun exists on a completely different level, stating that his bottomless well of strength and insane magical casting is something she cannot even begin to comprehend. However, Sophia surprises her by saying that she actually understood his highly complex fighting style perfectly. She enthusiastically explains that despite all the flashy, overwhelming magic and blinding speed, Orhun was simply executing the exact basic techniques he had been teaching them all week about how rear attackers and defenders should properly operate on the battlefield. Selma is genuinely amazed by Sophia's incredibly sharp observation skills and affectionately kisses her sister on the forehead, proudly telling her how much she respects her independence, strong will, and determination to learn. The very next morning, Orhun wakes up in his small, sunlit room, groaning loudly in pain. The incredible physical toll of parallel casting high-tier magic and pushing his body past its absolute mortal limits has left him with severe muscle aches, though he is incredibly relieved to find that there are no permanent magical after effects. A short while later, Selma stops by his room to check on his recovery. She formally bows and personally thanks him from the bottom of her heart for saving all of the new recruits without a single casualty. She then reveals the real purpose of her visit, asking if he would be willing to come to their clan headquarters right away because their leader explicitly requested to meet him. Orhun agrees, and they head to the grand, heavily fortified office of Vince, the leader of the Night Sky Silver Rabbits. Vince sits behind a massive wooden desk adorned with the clan's golden rabbit emblem and gets straight to the point. He directly offers Orhun a highly coveted position as a frontline attacker for Unit 1, their absolute strongest party, and even offers to officially recommend him for a lieutenant role right off the bat. Selma stands proudly beside her leader and fully supports the idea, expressing her strong desire to work alongside him to support the clan. Orhun is genuinely surprised by such a massive and prestigious offer, noting that almost any other adventurer in the city would jump at the chance instantly. However, the deep emotional scars from being horribly betrayed by his previous party still haunt him, making him fear commitment, so he respectfully asks for some time to think the offer over. Vince completely understands his hesitation and tells him to take all the time he needs, casually mentioning that the Adventurers Guild also sent an urgent request for Orhun to visit them. Leaving the grand headquarters, Orhun decides to drop by his old friend's rustic potion shop to ask for some much-needed advice. The white-bearded shopkeeper listens carefully as Orhun admits he is terrified of joining a new clan only to end up being used and thrown away again, just like Oliver's party did to him. The old man warmly laughs and gently reminds him that while getting used is a harsh way to put it, relying on others and making up for each other's weaknesses is exactly how people truly grow and survive in this world. Orhun takes the wise words to heart but remains heavily conflicted. He then heads over to the Adventurers Guild, walking straight into an incredibly tense meeting in the Guildmaster's dark, wood-paneled office. The Guildmaster is severely interrogating Oliver, Derek, Anili, and the rest of Orhun's former party about their incredibly reckless decision to dive straight into Floor 92 with a brand new, inexperienced enchanter, a foolish move that nearly got their entire party wiped out. The moment Orhun walks in, Derek and Anili immediately try to shift the negative attention away from themselves by loudly mocking him. They arrogantly claim that Orhun only managed to land the finishing blow on the Black Dragon because they had already severely weakened it beforehand, calling his victory nothing but sheer dumb luck. Orhun coldly tells them to shut up and points out that they are completely delusional and have absolutely no part in his accomplishments. He then turns his intense anger directly toward Oliver, furious that his former best friend fired him simply because he severely underestimates the true value and massive effort of an enchanter. Oliver aggressively defends his incredibly poor leadership choices, claiming that an enchanter's job is incredibly easy since they just sit safely in the back and lazily recast buffs whenever the previous ones expire. Hearing this level of pure, unadulterated ignorance makes Orhun completely snap. He steps right up to the table, coldly stares Oliver down, and completely destroys his entire argument by explaining the massive mental burden of managing a party. He aggressively lists off the exact, wildly different durations of their individual magical buffs, noting with absolute precision that Oliver's buff lasts exactly 61 seconds, Aneli's lasts 134 seconds, and Derek's lasts 186 seconds. Orhun furiously explains that a real enchanter has to perfectly track all of these completely different timers in their head, completely refresh the complex spells precisely before they run out, and simultaneously issue highly tactical commands to the entire party while dodging deadly monster attacks in the middle of a chaotic battle. He loudly demands to know how Oliver could ever consider that incredibly stressful job easy, leaving the arrogant hero completely speechless, wide-eyed, and grinding his teeth in pure frustration at being publicly humiliated. Meanwhile, back at the Sunny Academy courtyard, Sophia meets up with her pink-haired friend and a blonde boy from their training squad. They are all incredibly eager to track down Orhun and officially ask him to join the Night Sky Silver Rabbits. They run into Selma in the garden and excitedly share their grand plan, but Selma looks incredibly doubtful. She bluntly tells the kids that Orhun is simply far too powerful, and dragging a bunch of inexperienced rookies around would only slow his incredible progress down. The kids completely agree that they are currently useless to him in a real fight, but the blonde boy confidently states that just being around someone that overwhelmingly strong will push them to learn and improve at a massive rate. The pink-haired girl enthusiastically chimes in, cheering that training under him is actually really fun and rewarding. Sophia adds that she absolutely does not want to say goodbye to him and genuinely wants to keep learning from his incredible expertise. Hearing their unwavering determination and pure admiration, Selma realizes she was completely overthinking the situation. She smiles warmly and points them toward the Adventurers Guild. The three kids immediately sprint off into the bustling town to find him. Shortly after leaving the incredibly tense guild meeting, Orhun spots the three kids eagerly running through the crowded cobblestone streets, loudly calling his name. Still heavily unsure about joining the clan and deeply afraid of letting them down or getting attached, he immediately panics and decides to run away. He ducks into a narrow stone alleyway, desperately uses his dark magic to instantly conjure floating platforms, and literally leaps across the high rooftops just to avoid a group of persistent teenagers. Exhausted from his injuries catching up to him, he eventually sneaks back into the old man's potion shop to hide. The shopkeeper laughs out loud at the ridiculous situation, pointing out that Orhun is going to absurd lengths to avoid the kids because he clearly cares about them a lot. He notes that Orhun actually looks like he is having a lot of fun running around, and gently tells the young man that he absolutely does not have to be alone forever. Later that night, Orhun takes a quiet, reflective walk out to a lush grassy hill near the clan headquarters, a place he often goes to clear his head. To his total surprise, Sophia is already there waiting for him under the starry sky. She formally bows and earnestly thanks him again for everything he did to save them in the dungeon. When Orhun asks why she is out so incredibly late, she explains that this quiet hill is her absolute favorite spot because of the beautiful, unobstructed view of the moon. She tells him that even in the absolute darkest of nights, the moon always shines bright and gives her the strength to keep going. She then reveals the true, deep meaning behind the night sky silver rabbit's name, explaining that the moon is known as the ultimate guide of the night, and their clan continuously strives to be a guiding light for all lost adventurers. The phrase triggers a brief, nostalgic flashback in Orhun's mind of someone else saying something very similar a long time ago. Sophia then looks right at him, her eyes full of intense hope, and openly begs him to join their clan so she can stay by his side. Orhun gently asks her what the clan actually means to her on a personal level. Without any hesitation, Sophia smiles warmly and tells him that the clan has taught her absolutely everything, given her endless reasons to smile, and is the one place she is truly proud to call her home. Her heartfelt, emotional declaration about finally finding a place where she completely belongs strikes a massive chord within Orhun, instantly clearing away all of his lingering doubts, insecurities, and deep-seated fears of betrayal. Fully convinced by her pure sincerity, Orhun returns to the Grand Clan headquarters and formally stands before Vince to accept the massive offer. He officially requests to join the Night Sky Silver Rabbits, and Vince warmly welcomes him into the fold with a proud smile. Selma happily hands him his brand new, perfectly tailored dark blue and gold guild uniform. After quickly changing into his stylish new gear, Orhun pushes open the large wooden double doors of the headquarters and confidently steps out into the bright sunlight. Sophia, the pink-haired girl, and the blonde boy are waiting for him just outside, completely overjoyed and cheering wildly to see him finally wearing the clan colors. Orhun looks at his dedicated new friends, flashes a genuine happy smile, and proudly tells them that he is incredibly looking forward to working with them from now on. While Orhun is looking forward to his new life with the Night Sky Silver Rabbits, his mind briefly drifts back to his childhood days when things were much simpler. Back then, he used to frequently spar with Oliver out in the open dirt fields. During one of their practice matches, Orhun loses the duel and casually admits that he simply cannot beat Oliver anymore. Oliver gets extremely frustrated by this outcome and loudly yells that Orhun used to be much stronger, demanding to know what happened to his skills. Orhun relaxed on the ground and simply replies that Oliver just grew up to be stronger than him, stating that it is the only logical explanation. Oliver completely refuses to accept this excuse and promises to make Orhun take their next fight entirely seriously before storming off. Once he is alone, Orhun admits to himself that he is intentionally holding back because he absolutely does not want to accidentally kill his friend. Suddenly, a young white-haired girl named Shion approaches him and cheerfully tells Orhun that he actually looked really cool during the fight. She states that she already knows what his true strength looks like. Orhun confesses that his current state of weakness is just a direct result of his heart being far too weak to endure the massive expectations of the adults around them. He feels incredibly guilty that Oliver is now carrying that incredibly heavy burden for him, so he resolves to help Oliver however he possibly can from the sidelines. Seeing Orhun's deep distress, Xian kneels beside him and makes a firm promise that she will become strong enough to stand right by his side. She vows to do everything in her power to catch up to him so they can eventually fight their enemies and walk side by side together. She then earnestly asks Orhun to be her guide until that day finally comes. Meanwhile, in a dark room located somewhere entirely different, a bearded man reports to his Grandmaster about a massive recent event in the southern region. He informs the Grandmaster that an unidentified adventurer just defeated the legendary Black Dragon all by himself outside of its normal boss area. The Grandmaster immediately assumes it must be Oliver, but the bearded man quickly corrects him. The Grandmaster is highly shocked by this information and openly wonders if the mysterious Dragon Slayer could actually be Orhun Dura. However, the Grandmaster quickly dismisses his own theory, believing that if Orhun truly possessed that kind of overwhelming power, he would not have wasted his time and energy fighting a standard floor boss. He suspects that Orhun might have somehow gained a completely new power and orders his bearded subordinate to keep a very close eye on him and report any unusual activities immediately. At the exact same time, deep within a lush green forest, a fully grown-up Xian and her elite party of adventurers have just finished effortlessly wiping out 5 top-level adventurer groups who tried to ambush them. A messenger suddenly arrives at their location and informs Xian that headquarters has a new assignment for them. The messenger explains that an incredibly powerful dragon slayer recently appeared in the southern Great Dungeon and successfully defeated the Black Dragon alone. Headquarters suspects that this dragon slayer might have already sided with the church, so Xian is directly ordered to make contact with him and kill him immediately if he proves to be an enemy. Xian accepts the mission, and her party prepares to travel south. She highly doubts the Dragon Slayer is Oliver and deeply worries that this new threat might conquer the southern region far too quickly if left unchecked. Deep down, Xian still fiercely loves Orhun more than anyone else and firmly believes that he is already dead. She vividly remembers the devastating day she received a final letter from him stating that he could not fight alongside her anymore, an event she considers the exact day her heart completely froze over. Driven by her immense grief and anger, she fiercely vows to completely eradicate the old men in the church who she believes directly drove Orhun to his tragic death. She swears to eliminate absolutely anyone who gets in her way, fully prepared to murder the Dragon Slayer without hesitation if he has allied with her enemies. Back in the present, Orhun attends a highly formal council meeting with the top executives of the Night Sky Silver Rabbits, sitting alongside Selma and a brown-haired man wearing glasses. The man with glasses formally addresses the council, heavily praising Orhun for risking his own life to protect the rookies during the recent dungeon expedition. He also heavily highlights Orhun's extensive knowledge from managing all the operations for the famous Heroes Party. Because of these incredibly impressive achievements, the man proposes making Orhun an official lieutenant of the clan to permanently replace Albert, a respected member who recently died while fighting the Black Dragon. Before the council can take a formal vote on the matter, an older man with a mustache completely stops the proceedings to ask Orhun a highly crucial question. He asks Orhun if he is fully prepared to offer his entire life for the sake of the clan, firmly explaining that a lieutenant's decisions affect everyone and the clan's overall needs must absolutely come before everything else. Orhun suddenly remembers a tragic moment from his past when his entire village burned down and he was utterly powerless to stop it. He looks the older man dead in the eye and bluntly states that he absolutely cannot do that because he swore a personal vow he will never break. The other council members are highly shocked and deeply offended by his response, loudly stating that his flat refusal makes him completely unfit to be a lieutenant or even a standard member of their organization. The older man calmly asks Orhun why he is even sitting there if he refuses to give everything to the clan. Orhun firmly explains that he originally joined the guild solely to protect the specific people he actually cares about. He clarifies that he will never blindly sacrifice himself for the clan as a faceless, abstract organization, but he will gladly give his life to protect his actual comrades so he never has to experience losing anyone important ever again. The older man is highly impressed by Orhun's genuine, unwavering resolve and officially accepts his answer. The man with glasses then calls for a formal vote, and Orhun is officially approved and welcomed as a brand new lieutenant. Shortly after the intense meeting concludes, Orhun walks down the ornate hallway with Selma. A cheerful brown-haired girl named Estella from the Adventure Management Division approaches the two of them. Estella directly asks Orhun if he would be willing to teach and manage a brand new adventuring party, knowing perfectly well that he used to handle all the complex operations and scheduling for the Heroes Party. Selma strongly encourages Orhun to accept the job offer as well. Orhun hesitates and worries that taking on a teaching role might heavily interfere with his primary combat duties in Unit 1. However, Estella quickly assures him that he will have plenty of free time to manage both roles because the clan strictly bans anyone from exploring the Great Dungeon for more than 3 days at a time. Hearing this incredibly generous policy, Orhun happily agrees to take on the extra responsibility and help out the rookies. Estella is absolutely thrilled by his acceptance and promises to send him all the necessary teaching materials right away before happily running off down the hall. Selma then takes Orhun into a private room to officially meet the rest of Unit 1, the clan's absolute strongest combat party. They gather around a large wooden table, and the members enthusiastically introduce themselves one by one. Rain introduces herself as a 24-year-old mage and playfully tells Orhun to treat her just like a big sister whenever he needs anything. Lucretia introduces herself as an 18-year-old healer and cheerfully asks Orhun to simply call her Lucra. Wilkes introduces himself as a 20-year-old defender and immediately gets highly annoyed when Lucretia jokingly calls him happy-go-lucky in front of the new guy. Finally, Selma formally introduces herself as the official leader and primary enchanter of the group. Orhun respectfully introduces himself as an 18-year-old frontline attacker who is stepping in to take over Albert's old role, and he promises to do his absolute best to catch up to their high skill level. Lucretia quickly tells him to completely drop his formal attitude since they are the exact same age, explaining that speaking casually makes battlefield communication much easier and faster. The entire group immediately makes Orhun feel incredibly welcome and right at home. Wilkes eagerly asks Orhun how he actually managed to defeat the legendary Black Dragon all by himself. Selma gently tells Orhun that he absolutely does not have to answer if he doesn't want to, but Orhun firmly believes it is highly crucial to share all of his combat information with his new comrades. He explains that he heavily relied on 2 highly complex original spells that he created himself. The first spell is called Impact, which massively multiplies the effects of his physical equipment and magic by up to 100 times. The rest of the party is completely mind-blown by this absurdly high multiplier. Orhun then explains that his second original spell allows him to cast his support magic multiple times to massively stack the effects, casually revealing that he actually stacked his buffs 32 times during the intense dragon fight. Rain and Lucretia scream in absolute shock, loudly calling his unique abilities totally unfair and completely broken. However, Orhun admits that simultaneously maintaining the spells places an extreme amount of physical and mental stress on his body, meaning he absolutely cannot sustain the overwhelming power for very long in a prolonged fight. The group is still completely amazed and asks why he doesn't fill other combat roles with that kind of raw power. Orhun bashfully admits that despite his deep fundamental knowledge of magic, he actually can only cast mid-ranked spells no matter how hard he tries, which is the exact reason why he was forced to invent those original boosting spells in the first place. Rain quickly cheers him up, heavily praising his immense hard work and sincerely hoping he eventually learns higher-ranked magic someday. Lucretia then excitedly mentions that she has a very unique special ability, and Selma reveals that 3 different people in Unit 1 actually possess special abilities. They all decide it is much better to just show Orhun their unique skills during actual combat, so Selma officially plans a team coordination run in the Great Dungeon for the very next day. Rain excitedly suggests throwing a massive welcome party for Orhun first, but Orhun awkwardly declines the offer, explaining that he completely lost his main weapon during the Black Dragon fight and needs to go buy a cheap off-the-shelf sword from a regular store before they enter the dungeon. Rain aggressively shoots down the idea, fiercely stating that a star member of the Night Sky Silver Rabbits absolutely cannot be seen running around using a basic store-bought sword. She heavily insists they go get him a custom weapon right away. The party drags Orhun down to the armory to meet Aran, the clan's highly dedicated blacksmith. Aaron is highly shocked to hear that the famous Dragon Slayer uses basic weapons but happily agrees to forge a brand new custom sword for him. However, Aaron explains there is a major problem because he is completely out of high-quality crafting materials from the deepest dungeon floors. Wilkes points out the massive irony of needing deep floor materials just to make a sword so Orhun can physically go to the deep floors. Orhun casually tells them not to worry at all and completely empties his item storage, pulling out a massive stash of incredibly rare monster parts and highly valuable magical items. He explains that he actively hoarded all of these rare materials while adventuring with the heroes party because they never actually let him use anything. Rain and Lucretia marvel at the massive pile of griffin claws and manticore fangs. Then, Orhun pulls out a massive, shimmering black scale from the black dragon he just defeated. The entire room instantly goes dead silent. Rain, Wilkes, and Selma stare blankly at the dark scale with highly somber expressions as the incredibly painful memory of Albert dying to that exact monster violently floods back into their minds. Orhun quickly realizes he made a terrible mistake by bringing up the dragon and heavily apologizes for carelessly reopening their deep emotional wounds. Recognizing his deep guilt, Rain immediately snaps out of her sadness and intentionally forces a huge, excited smile. She loudly cheers that they can use the extremely rare scale to forge the absolute strongest sword ever, purposefully ensuring the mood stays highly positive for Orhun's sake. Eren carefully examines the Black Dragon scale and excitedly confirms it will be the absolute perfect main ingredient for the new weapon. He asks Orhun if he has any specific design requests for the blade. Orhun turns back to his new friends and heavily apologizes for actively delaying their welcome party to design his sword, but Wilkes and Lucretia warmly smile and reassure him, telling him to take all the time he needs to get his perfect weapon ready for their upcoming adventure. The following day, Orhun joins the rest of Unit 1 around a table as Selma announces that their mission is to collect noxious sheep pelts on floor 86 so they can properly practice their teamwork with him. They quickly make their way down into the Great Dungeon and arrive at floor 86, which completely contrasts with the dark cave structures of the upper levels by featuring beautiful open green fields and a bright sky. Selma wastes no time laying out their tactical formations. She assigns Wilkes to keep the monster's attention at the front, while Rain attacks from the rear using long-range magic. Lucretia is ordered to join the offensive but must keep her healing magic prepped at all times just in case. Selma states she will stay back to buff everyone and call the shots, while Orhun is assigned as the primary frontline attacker. Wilkes jokes that Orhun is so incredibly strong he could probably just clear out all the monsters by himself, playfully worrying that the rest of them might actually just slow him down. Orhun quickly shuts that idea down, firmly stating that he is an official part of their party now and fully intends to follow Selma's orders so they can learn to fight as a cohesive unit. Selma gets a little flustered by his loyalty and spaces out staring at him, but her distraction is completely shattered when a massive fireball suddenly blasts toward them from across the field. Everyone dives out of the way just in time to avoid the explosion. Orhun immediately identifies the incoming attack as belonging to an Earth Dragon, but the monster is completely invisible to them. Lucretia quickly steps up and activates her special ability called Magic Tracking, allowing her to zero in on the residual magical energy in the air. She spots the monster hiding in the distant brush and immediately fires a massive green magical blast to flush it out. A huge horned Earth Dragon emerges from the smoke and roars, but before it can launch another fireball, Wilkes charges forward with his double-bladed spear. He effortlessly dodges the dragon's attacks and leaps over the creature, delivering a heavy strike to disorient it. Rain then steps forward and quickly constructs a special rank spell called Explode, unleashing a massive magical blast that completely obliterates the Earth Dragon in an instant. Orhun is highly impressed by their speed and seamless coordination, specifically noting how incredibly fast Rain constructed such a high-level spell, and how absolutely vital Lucretia's tracking ability is for finding hidden enemies. Selma blushes heavily at Orhun's praise, but their celebration is instantly cut short when two more massive Earth Dragons suddenly appear from the mountains and roar aggressively at them. Orhun and Wilkes immediately ready their weapons and charge at the dragons, but just as they do, a sharp rock arrow strikes the ground right behind the girls. A giant, heavily armored monster known as a hiding turtle materializes from thin air, completely trapping the team between its massive shell and the two aggressive Earth Dragons. Without missing a beat, Selma barks out new orders, commanding Rain and Lucretia to handle the slow-moving turtle with their heavy magic, while Orhun and Wilkes take out the two dragons. She tells the boys to completely ignore what is happening behind them and to just focus entirely on their targets. As Orhun prepares to strike, he suddenly hears Selma's voice directly inside his head. She reveals that her special ability is telepathy, allowing her to instantly communicate and coordinate with her team over long distances without speaking out loud. Orhun is completely blown away by this, realizing it is exactly the kind of strategic ability he desperately wanted when he was running operations for the hero's party. Selma uses her telepathy to instruct Orhun to target the dragon's blind spots and tells him to apply whatever buffs he needs. Orhun immediately activates his boosting magic, rapidly casting Strength Up, Technical Up, and Sharpness Up on himself. Selma counts down the timing, perfectly syncing Orhun's attack with Wilkes' distraction. Orhun unleashes his original spell, Impact, and swings his sword with absolutely massive force, creating a blinding white flash that instantly cleaves through both Earth Dragons and annihilates them on the spot. Wilkes is completely stunned by the sheer power of the attack, having never seen anyone cut cleanly through two Earth Dragons before. At the exact same time, Lucretia and Rain unleash a devastating combo on their end. Lucretia calls down a massive lightning strike with her Mjolnir spell, and Rain follows it up by hurling giant ice javelins directly into the hiding turtle. The combined magical assault causes a massive explosion that completely destroys the armored beast. With the battlefield finally clear, the team regroups and happily fist bumps over their flawless victory. Selma heavily praises Orhun for his incredible performance on his very first run with them, and Orhun genuinely smiles, admitting that it has been a very long time since fighting felt this incredibly easy and fun. He tells them he is genuinely happy to be part of a team where everyone actually helps each other out. Hearing this makes the girls incredibly happy, and Selma then turns to Orhun with a very serious expression to ask him if he honestly thinks they are ready to explore Floor 92. Orhun assumes she means with him helping them, but Selma clarifies that she wants to know if their original four-man team is actually strong enough on its own. Orhun firmly tells her that their strength is absolutely incredible, and he genuinely believes they could defeat the Black Dragon even without his help. Hearing the famous Dragon Slayer openly validate their hard work causes Rain and Lucretia to burst into tears of joy. Selma explains that they have been training relentlessly for the past year ever since losing Albert, but they never truly knew if their efforts were actually amounting to anything until Orhun confirmed it. Orhun vividly remembers the terrifying, overwhelming power of the Black Dragon from his own solo fight, but he looks at his new friends and fiercely swears that he will protect them to the very end so that nobody else ever has to die. The team is deeply moved by his vow and they completely rally together, easily hunting down the 9 nauseous sheep needed to successfully complete their quest. With the pelts collected, they head back to the surface. Orhun mentions he needs to go to the Adventure Management Division tomorrow to officially report the mission's success, and Selma eagerly jumps at the chance to go with him, suggesting they meet up first thing in the morning. Later that night, the Night Sky Silver Rabbits throw a massive welcome party for Orhun at their favorite local tavern. They order tons of food and fill their wooden mugs to the brim, cheering and drinking together. Rain, Lucretia, and Wilkes all admit that they were actually incredibly nervous about working with the famous Dragon Slayer, completely fearing they would just drag him down or that he would be highly unapproachable. Orhun laughs and admits he was nervous about fitting in too. Rain then playfully throws Selma under the bus, loudly pointing out that Selma was definitely the most nervous of them all because she was way too interested in Orhun right from the start. Selma gets extremely flustered and heavily blushes, desperately trying to defend herself by claiming she was just doing her job as the team leader to make sure he felt comfortable as quickly as possible. Wilkes completely ignores her excuses and just tells Orhun to drink up. As the night goes on, Orhun reflects on how incredibly happy he is to have joined this clan and firmly promises himself he will do whatever it takes to protect his precious comrades. However, his peaceful thoughts are completely derailed when an incredibly drunk Selma suddenly leans her head right onto his shoulder. She looks up at him with completely dazed eyes, blushing furiously, and flat out tells him that he is an incredibly handsome man. Orhun nervously assumes she is just joking around, but Selma insists she is totally serious and boldly declares that she has been waiting for this day for a very long time. She wraps her hand around his chest and heavily whispers that he is absolutely not getting away from her until morning. Orhun starts completely panicking and desperately calls out to Rain to come calm Selma down, but Rain just laughs and decides to join in on the fun, hugging Orhun from the other side. Lucretia happily cheers them on while Wilkes just sits back with a huge smug grin, completely refusing to help Orhun and joking that Orhun is the star of the show tonight. With Selma pushing against him and whispering in his ear, Orhun is completely overwhelmed and blushing out of his mind. Left with absolutely no other choice, Orhun secretly activates his Induce Sleep spell. In an instant, both Selma and Rain pass out cold right on his shoulder. Orhun lets out a massive sigh of relief, silently thanking Selma for such a fun and chaotic night. Very late that night, Selma's younger sister Sophia is awake in her room wondering why her sister is still out so late. She hears a knock at her bedroom door and is completely shocked to find Orhun standing in the hallway carrying an unconscious Selma on his back. Sophia instantly assumes something romantic is going on, but Orhun quickly shuts that down, awkwardly explaining that Selma just drank way too much at the welcome party and completely passed out. Sophia feels a bit bad for the misunderstanding, but is mostly just highly surprised because Selma never gets that incredibly drunk. After Orhun drops Selma off on her bed and leaves, Sophia wakes her sister up and gently scolds her for causing Orhun so much trouble. Selma is absolutely mortified when she realizes Orhun had to carry her all the way home, and she apologizes profusely, feeling completely terrible about her highly embarrassing behavior. Sophia smiles warmly and tells Selma that she does not need to apologize to her. She points out that Selma has been under a massive amount of stress lately as the team leader, and now that Orhun is finally here, she's actually able to completely relax and let her guard down. Sophia is just incredibly happy to see her older sister having so much fun again, and completely credits Orhun for bringing Selma's smile back. Hearing her little sister say such incredibly sweet things makes Selma completely burst into tears of joy, loudly declaring that Sophia is an absolute angel from heaven. The next morning, Selma stands under the hot water of her shower, completely stressing out over everything that happened the night before. She cringes immensely at the memory of being carried home and feels absolutely mortified that she embarrassed herself so badly in front of both Orhun and her little sister. She worries that Sophia is going to completely misunderstand her feelings for Orhun if she keeps acting so recklessly around him. Selma tries to forcefully convince herself that she only likes Orhun as a good person and heavily respects him as an elite adventurer, completely denying that she has any romantic feelings for him whatsoever. However, her mind keeps stubbornly flashing back to the exact moment she leaned against his chest and called him handsome, making her blush furiously all over again. She vigorously shakes her head, telling herself she needs to focus and completely drop the subject so she doesn't ruin their working relationship. A little while later, she meets up with Orhun in town to head to the management division together. She immediately bows her head and heavily apologizes for getting so drunk and causing him so much trouble the night before. Orhun just smiles gently and tells her not to worry about it at all, suggesting they just completely forget the whole thing ever happened. Selma quickly agrees, and the two of them decide to just focus entirely on their upcoming adventures together. Orhun spends some time alone reviewing the confidential files of his new students, Sophia, Logan, and Caroline. He notices that all three of them have incredibly bitter pasts, but Caroline's file stands out as particularly tragic. The next morning, Orhun and Selma arrive at the Exploration Management Department and meet with Carla, the caretaker for the rookie explorers, and Estella. Carla mentions that Orhun is officially taking charge of the 10th Squad's training and asks if he has read their files. Orhun confirms that he has reviewed everything and reached a solid conclusion about how to handle them. Carla trusts his judgment and leaves the rookies entirely in his care. Estella admits she was worried about the kids but feels deeply relieved knowing Orhun is stepping in as their instructor. Orhun asks about teaching materials or specific guidelines, but Estella tells him there are absolutely none, leaving the entire curriculum entirely up to his discretion based on his past experiences. However, she sets an incredibly high goal for the team, requesting that Orhun train the rookies to be strong enough to conquer the middle floors of the Great Dungeon completely on their own within just 6 months. Orhun points out that this is a massive expectation, but Selma chimes in, noting that the rookies are highly promising and have already grown a lot during their recent instructional expedition. Estella confidently cheers Orhun on, fully counting on him as the new executive to make it happen. As Orhun and Selma walk down a quiet hallway together, Selma brings up the files and assumes Orhun now knows the truth about her relationship with Sophia. Orhun admits he was quite surprised to learn about their family dynamic. Selma explains that Sophia's mother was originally a servant in the Claudel household who passed away shortly after giving birth to Sophia. The Claudel family took Sophia in, but because she was the child of their father's mistress, she was placed in an incredibly difficult position and endured a lot of hardship from a very young age. Selma tried her absolute best to protect her little sister, but after Selma eventually left the house to become an explorer, the family's treatment of Sophia grew even worse. When Selma returned home for the first time, she immediately asked Sophia if she wanted to leave with her, extending her hand to pull her sister out of that abusive environment. Selma confesses that her deep desire for Sophia to become a fine and independent explorer might just be her own personal favoritism as an older sister, but Orhun reassures her that her feelings are completely natural. He promises to do everything in his power to look after Sophia, bringing a massive wave of relief to Selma. Orhun then enters the classroom to meet his 3 new students. Caroline, Sophia, and Logan are absolutely thrilled to see him, cheering excitedly about becoming his official disciples. Orhun clarifies that this is technically formal training for the clan, but he essentially agrees to take them under his wing. The kids praise his incredible strength, specifically mentioning how he completely overwhelmed the Black Dragon. But Orhun humbly admits it was actually a very close call, and insists that the Black Dragon is an enemy they should aim to defeat themselves someday if they truly want to conquer the Great Dungeon. The rookies are shocked by the idea of ever fighting such a massive monster, but Orhun firmly believes they possess tremendous potential and can become top-tier explorers if they put in the work. He then establishes 2 core rules for their training. First, they must always keep thinking and find creative ways to solve problems outside the box. Second, they must never blindly assume that everything he says is absolutely correct. He reminds them that he is not omnipotent, has made plenty of his own mistakes, and wants them to process his advice to build their own unique knowledge rather than just swallowing his words whole. He highly encourages them to ask questions whenever they have doubts. Before starting the physical training, Orhun asks each of them to explain exactly why they decided to become explorers in the first place. Sophia goes first, explaining that she wants to become a strong, independent person who can make her own choices, exactly like her older sister Selma. She admits she doesn't actually have a specific dream yet, so she became an explorer to simply find her true goals in life. Orhun praises her honesty and promises to fully support her journey of self-discovery. Next, Logan enthusiastically declares that his main goal is to earn a massive amount of money. He explains that he grew up in a severely impoverished village with barren land, where the locals constantly struggled just to find enough food to survive the next day. Knowing Logan couldn't stay trapped there forever, the villagers pooled together all the little money they had left to send him to the city. Logan is heavily determined to become a highly successful explorer, so he can fully repay his village and save them from poverty. He admits he used to arrogantly think he was already as strong as a high-rank explorer, but watching Orhun fight the Black Dragon made him realize just how incredibly weak he truly is. He desperately begs Orhun to teach him everything he needs to know so he can gain the power required to achieve his goal. Orhun is deeply moved by Logan's noble motivations and promises to teach him everything, warning him that mastering the skills will entirely depend on Logan's own hard work. Finally, Caroline happily chimes in, stating she doesn't have any grand, complex reasons for being an explorer. She cheerfully claims she just likes killing monsters because it makes people smile. She explains that she absolutely hates it when people aren't smiling, because when people smile, they don't hurt her. Monsters take away people's smiles, so she destroys the monsters. Orhun instantly recognizes the deep, unsettling darkness behind her overly cheerful explanation, but gently agrees that everyone's smiles are incredibly important, thanking her for sharing. Having heard all their motivations, Orhun tells them to never forget their origins. Caroline then asks Orhun if he has his own dream. Orhun confidently states that no matter how unreasonable the world gets, he refuses to lose anything else. He wants to be overwhelmingly strong so he can perfectly protect everything that matters to him, which is why he constantly pushes himself to grow stronger. He promises to take their training entirely seriously and demands they come at him with everything they have. To make combat communication much faster, Orhun decides to give them shorter nicknames. He renames Caroline as Carol, which she happily accepts. Logan eagerly begs for a nickname too, even though his name is already short, so Orhun casually dubs him Log. Logan gets overwhelmingly emotional and acts like receiving a nickname from his master is the greatest honor in the entire world. Orhun then gives Sophia the nickname Sophie, which she also gladly accepts. The girls happily celebrate their new names while Log enthusiastically asks if he can start officially calling Orhun his master. Orhun doesn't mind the title, though Sophie prefers to just stick with calling him by his actual name. With introductions and motivations out of the way, Orhun firmly declares that he is going to train them relentlessly. The group heads down into a dark, rocky cavern to begin their practical combat training. Carol immediately rushes ahead to fight a pack of white wolves, dual-wielding her daggers with a massive, confident smile. She leaps between the wolves and slashes them at blinding speeds, easily turning the monsters into glowing shards. However, Orhun watches her highly aggressive movements and quickly notes that her fighting style is far too reckless. He explains that a defender's job is to draw the enemy's attention so the attacker can land the finishing blow, while an attacker focuses purely on offense. But right now, Carol is failing to do either role properly. She fights with an extremely high-risk style, completely neglecting her own defense to land faster strikes. After she kills one of the large wolves, she stands triumphantly with her arms outstretched, completely unaware that another wolf is magically spawning right behind her. Orhun immediately casts a reflective wall, uses an agility-boosting spell, and dashes across the cavern at lightning speed. He easily decapitates the sneaking wolf with his glowing green sword, sending its head flying before it can ambush Carol. Orhun firmly scolds her for failing to watch her surroundings in battle, warning her that she could have been severely injured by the surprise attack. Carol casually replies that she actually knew the monster was going to attack her from behind, which is exactly why she deliberately left herself completely open. Orhun is highly confused by this twisted logic, asking why she didn't just dodge to avoid the heavy damage. Carol suddenly realizes she hasn't told Orhun about her unique ability yet. To demonstrate, she calmly pulls out a silver dagger and, without any hesitation, violently slashes her own wrist right in front of him. Blood drips onto the stone floor, but within seconds the wound completely heals itself, leaving her skin perfectly flawless. Orhun is absolutely shocked to witness her superpower firsthand. Carol cheerfully explains that she possesses an immortal body, meaning no matter how badly she gets injured, she heals instantly, and she casually adds that she is already completely used to the feeling of intense physical pain anyway. Orhun instantly recalls the horrifying details from her confidential file. Carol was held captive for years by the Cyclamen cult, a massive criminal syndicate dedicated to reviving an evil god through human experimentation and trafficking. Because of her self-healing ability, the cult members subjected her to endless, inhumane torture and experiments until she was finally rescued by Albert from the 1st Division. However, the severe trauma heavily destabilized her mental state, and Albert's recent death only worsened the incredibly deep wounds in her heart. Orhun realizes that her reckless fighting style is a direct result of her horrific past. He steps closer to her and firmly tells her to look at Sophie and Log. Carol turns and sees her friends looking incredibly worried and upset by her self-harm. Orhun explains that even if her physical wounds heal instantly, getting hurt still causes her deep emotional pain, and more importantly, it causes intense pain for the people who care about her. He tells her that when she bleeds, Sophie, Log, and he all feel that pain, and it makes their smiles disappear completely. He directly asks her if she is actually okay with stealing her friend's smiles just to fight recklessly. Realizing that her actions are actively causing the exact thing she fears the most, Carol becomes incredibly distressed. She drops her bloody daggers onto the ground and bursts into tears, desperately screaming that she doesn't want to steal anyone's smile and promising to never fight like that again. The overwhelming emotional stress causes her trauma to temporarily resurface, and she cowers on the ground, clutching her head and frantically begging Orhun not to hit her. Orhun feels his heart break for her, but he gently reaches out and pats her on the head. He pulls her into a comforting embrace, softly reassuring her that she is completely safe now, and that absolutely no one in their clan will ever lay a hand on her. He promises that if anyone ever tries to hurt her again, he will personally knock them flat. Carol slowly calms down in his arms while Sophie and Log watch the touching moment with deep respect for their master. Orhun completely shifts the focus of Carol's training to emphasize absolute defense and evasion. He sets up a rigorous exercise in a large training hall, firing rapid-speed magical orbs at her from all directions. Carol scrambles frantically across the floor, desperately dodging the projectiles and complaining that it is incredibly hard to avoid attacks when she doesn't know where they are coming from. Orhun firmly reminds her that if she wants to protect everyone's smiles, she must first learn how to properly protect herself without relying on her healing factor. He refuses to go easy on her, repeatedly blasting her with the training balls while she frustratingly calls him a complete demon. Meanwhile, Orhun has Log practicing with a spear instead of a sword. Log swings the weapon with heavy, determined strikes, and Orhun praises his improving form. Orhun explains that a spear allows Log to keep a safe distance from aggressive enemies while also giving him the flexibility to function as an enchanter for the team. Log eagerly agrees with the strategy, and Orhun promises to bring in his silver-haired teammate Will, who is an absolute expert with the spear, to give Log some advanced lessons later. For Sophie, Orhun designs an intense multitasking exercise to improve her parallel spell construction. He forces her to constantly subtract the number 7 from 500 out loud, while simultaneously maintaining 2 massive glowing magic circles in the air. On top of that, she must accurately fire specific elemental spells at numbered targets whenever Orhun randomly calls out a color. Sophie struggles to keep up with the intense mental strain, occasionally freezing up and apologizing when she loses count. Orhun firmly warns her that panicking or freezing up in a real battle will immediately put all of her teammates in lethal danger, pushing her to focus harder. During one of the drills, Sophie successfully readies 2 spells at the exact same time, but suddenly stops in confusion. She tells Orhun that when she reached out with her magic, she felt a highly strange sensation, almost as if she could physically affect the target without actually firing the spell, noting that the target even fell over on its own. Orhun quickly suspects this might be the first signs of her unique superpower manifesting, noting that superpowers vary wildly from person to person and are still largely misunderstood. Since Sophie is Selma's blood sister, Orhun internally theorizes that she likely inherited a powerful innate ability, just like Selma's telepathy. He advises Sophie not to rush things and tells her to take her time figuring out exactly what that strange feeling is. After an incredibly grueling day of training, the girls head to the local bathhouse to wash off the sweat and relax in the hot water. Sophie and Carol are completely exhausted, agreeing that Orhun's training methods are borderline demonic. Carla and Estella happen to be in the bathhouse as well and happily greet the rookies, praising them for how rapidly they are improving and encouraging them to keep up the great work. Sophie promises they will continue working hard, but then looks down at her own body with a slightly depressed expression, feeling insecure about her lack of physical curves compared to the older women. Carol cheerfully tries to comfort her, confidently stating that they are still in their growth phase and will definitely get much bigger as they get older. But Sophie just glares at Carol's already well-developed figure and calls her a traitor, leading to a loud, playful argument in the bath. Over the next few weeks, the intense training continues flawlessly. Carol becomes incredibly agile, effortlessly diving and weaving through Orhun's high-speed magical projectiles without taking a single hit. Sophie perfectly masters her parallel construction, instantly blasting multiple targets with alternating fire and water spells without ever breaking her concentration. Log spars aggressively with Will, expertly parrying heavy staff strikes and holding his ground against the veteran explorer. Orhun watches their massive progress with deep pride. He eventually gathers the 3 rookies in the main hall and proudly announces that since they successfully managed to defeat the floor boss of the 20th floor, the massive Orc Lord, entirely on their own yesterday, they have officially cleared the first major stage of his training program. The kids cheer wildly, and Orhun heavily encourages them to keep pushing forward to reach even higher levels in the dungeon. Later that day, Orhun heads over to the local blacksmith shop to pick up a special order. The muscular shopkeeper proudly presents him with a sleek, perfectly crafted black sword resting on the counter. Orhun picks it up and gives it a few practice swings, extremely impressed by its flawless balance and sharp edge. The shopkeeper confirms that the blade was forged directly from the incredibly rare scales of the black dragon that Orhun recently defeated. Holding his powerful new weapon, Orhun stares down at the dark blade and makes a heavy, solemn vow to himself. He fiercely swears upon the Black Dragon Sword that no matter how dangerous the situation becomes, he will use this newfound power to perfectly protect his precious comrades from all harm.